O inverno finalmente chegou em Game of Thrones e ao longo dessas 7 temporadas a gente viu o Rei da Noite ser construído aos poucos. Ele na verdade apareceu bem pouquinho durante esses anos todos. As pistas foram espalhadas por pouquíssimos episódios e agora na 8ª temporada a gente finalmente vai ter um confronto final. Nesse episódio do nosso especial sobre a série, a gente vai mergulhar um pouco na mitologia dos Caminhantes Brancos para tentar entender o passado e o futuro do Rei da Noite.
Fear is for the winter, when the snows fall 100 feet deep. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides for years, and children are born and live and die, all in darkness. That is the time for fear, my little lord, when the white walkers move through the woods. Thousands of years ago, there came a night that lasted a generation. Kings froze to death in their castles, same as the shepherds in their huts. And women smothered their babies rather than see them starve, and wept, and felt the tears freeze on their cheeks. So is this the sort of story that you like?
Lá na primeira temporada, aqui em Winterfell, o Bran Stark começou a mostrar pra gente que ele seria super importante para o futuro de Westeros. E para ser mais preciso, naquela torre ali atrás, ele foi jogado pelo Jaime Lannister lá do alto. Naquele momento, o Bran Stark, que era uma criança super ativa e que corria pelos castelos de Winterfell, se tornou um personagem completamente diferente. E depois a gente viu ele se tornar também o Corvo de Três Olhos. Mas é bom lembrar que ainda na primeira temporada, quando ele estava se recuperando, ele teve a sua primeira visão de presságio. Ele viu o pai nas criptas de Winterfell e aquilo ali já mostrava que provavelmente o pai dele estava morto. Para muita gente, o Bran é a chave para entender o Rei da Noite e também para descobrir o que vai acontecer com todo o mundo de Westeros.
What he doesn't realize is the possibility that his legs were taken away from him, but in exchange he got something else.
Certain things have changed within him. There are certain visions where he's starting to see things that he shouldn't be able to see.
Bran is beginning to have more and more of these slightly unusual dreams. And we realise that that is actually the Three-Eyed Raven from miles away in his cave, contacting Bran and helping him to fulfill his destiny and put him on the path to eventually becoming the Three-Eyed Raven himself. Bran's now out on his own with a wildling woman, his brother, and a man who can only say one word. The thinking is to head to Castle Black because that's where Jon is presumed to be. But all the while, Bran is having more and more intense visions from the Three-Eyed Raven. One of the other mystical warging figures, Jojen Reed, who starts appearing in some of Bran's visions.
You can't kill it, you know.
Why not?
Because the Raven is you.
Jojen has been destined onto this path to train Bran up a little bit and sort of indicate what Bran has to do. When they're trapped in a tower because there's a wildling raid going on and there's all sorts of storm, and Hodor, bless him, is not one for loud bangs, and so he begins panicking.
Hodor!
Quiet, Hodor!
Hodor!
Everyone suddenly becomes acutely aware that he might give away their position and the wildlings will come up there and slaughter them.
Hodor!
And so in a moment of blind panic, Bran manages to walk into Hodor and calm him down. Everyone's pretty freaked out, and Jojen looks at Bran and says, "No one's ever been able to walk into a human before." At that moment, Jojen certainly realises that Bran is more than just a talented warg. He's actually got some pretty serious powers going on.
North of the wall, there are wildlings who can control all sorts of animals. You got inside Hodor's mind.
I can't do that north of the wall.
No one can do that. Anyway.
Bran's visions are really starting to get stronger. He's starting to have glimpses of where he's supposed to be, and also other little flickers of bits of the past that he was never there for, and maybe even glimpses of the future.
Look for me beneath the tree. North.
After some pretty arduous trekking, they finally make it to the cave of the three-eyed raven, and Bran is curious with this strange, mystical, mythical figure.
You'll never walk again, but you will fly.
And so the three-eyed raven guides him back in time.
It's an amazing, enticing prospect for Bran, but it's also dangerous, as the three-eyed raven points out. It really needs to be doled out in doses, because the temptation for Bran is to never come back.
You finally show me something I care about, and then you drag me away.
It is beautiful beneath the sea. But if you stay too long, you'll drown.
I wasn't drowning. I was home.
There are certain symbols and patterns that recur throughout the show, and then you see it again here and learn where these patterns come from. That there are ancient symbols of the children of the forest used in their rituals, and the children of the forest created the White Walkers.
The Night King, who's sort of the embodiment of absolute evil. What you're watching is the creation of this absolute evil. So the absolute evil isn't absolute after all.
No one's innocent, really, in this world. And there is just something really beautifully right about the idea that the great nemesis of mankind were created to protect the children of the forest from mankind.
You made the White Walkers.
We were at war. We were being slaughtered. Our sacred trees cut down. We needed to defend ourselves.
From whom?
From you. From men.
The cave is a safe place. You know, it's like you're playing tag, and if your hand's on the wall, you're safe from whoever's it. And it is the Night King, and he can't access them as long as they're in there because of the magic that's protecting this cave. But Bran makes a mistake.
He saw me!
The time has come
The time for what?
for you to become me.
But... am I ready?
No.
As soon as the Three-Eyed Raven realizes there is no more time, he's got to try to upload all this knowledge into Bran.
This is happening much, much more rapidly than he thought it was going to happen. And he doesn't really know what it all means. He doesn't know what to make of it all because it's happening under duress. Bran is being dragged on a sledge and chased by whites.
Hodor's heroic sacrifice bought them some time, but it hasn't set them free. I mean, they're still in grave danger.
Mira is just hoping against hope that she's going to be able to save Bran's life, and of course, she is unable to do that without a little bit of help.
Come with me, now.
Benjamin was so important in the early episodes. He's an important character who just disappears. It's one of the mysteries that's been out there for several seasons, and we've been looking forward to bringing him back.
Cold Hands Benjen obviously had a lot to do with the Three-Eyed Raven over the past several years since his disappearance, and he's got a bit of a window into Bran's purpose.
You are the Three-Eyed Raven, no? I didn't have time to learn. I can't control anything.
Bran had to absorb the history of the world, the entire history of the world in imagery.
Burn them all!
They talk about the Three-Eyed Raven. It's not just a title that you get. There's a part of him that's no longer Brandon Stark, but is the Three-Eyed Raven, and the Three-Eyed Raven is not, entirely human.
You must learn to control it before the Night King comes. You will be there waiting for him. And you will be ready.
A gente viu no episódio sobre política que as tramas de Game of Thrones se desdobram não só nos campos de batalha, mas também nos bastidores, nos corredores. Mas existe um personagem na série que não está nem apto à luta de espadas e nem se envolve também nas articulações de poder. Estamos falando de Samwell Tarly, o mais erudito dos habitantes de Westeros. É graças aos seus estudos que Sam descobre onde encontrar o vidro de dragão. E por incrível que pareça, ele é o primeiro personagem a matar um caminhante branco com aquela arma. Dedicado a se tornar um mestre, Sam pode ser a peça-chave na luta contra o exército do Rei da Noite.
Samwell Tarly is the firstborn son of Randyll Tarly. Randyll Tarly is a great military tactician and a great warrior. He's somebody who always valued physical prowess and a military bearing. Samwell's never really subscribed to that worldview. He's always been very sensitive and very academic and very bookish. So he develops this plan to ship poor Samwell off to Castle Black.
What in seven hells is that?
It's either go to Castle Black or die at the hands of his father. He can't win. He doesn't have a choice. He has to be there.
Beautiful, isn't it? Gilly, you'd love it, eh?
We find them quite far north of the wall, just to maybe try and encounter wildlings and just maybe kind of gauge what kind of enemy they're up against here.
The first men made these marks. Help me with it.
At the Fist of the First Men, Sam and Gren happen upon a stash of dragonglass daggers. I think that's one of the first times that you really see Sam's bookishness and academia starting to kind of bubble up to the surface.
The Maesters call it obsidian.
He instantly identifies it as dragonglass. He knows the Maesters call it obsidian. Of course, Sam doesn't know that it's of any use. Sam doesn't know anything about it other than its name, but he's in possession of a quality that nobody else in that party has. He's the first one to really encounter at close quarters the army of the dead.
Part of it was something we were always curious about. You know, when the very first time we saw Craster leave a baby in season 2, you're wondering what the hell's that all about. You see the White Walker take it, you don't know what's going to happen. Are the White Walkers going to eat the babies? Are they going to sacrifice them in some kind of ritual? What happens? We loved the idea that there was one last baby that Craster had fathered before he died. And it's a moment that's, while not in the books, is kind of suggested by the books, and a moment that we thought would be really fun to illustrate in a horrifying way.
The revelation of what the walkers are actually doing with the babies, we hope will come as a particularly nasty surprise to people.
On the way back to Castle Black from Beyond the Wall, Sam has one really kind of formative experience in terms of his development.
Don't go out there.
I'll be back. I just want to look.
That's the moment where he defends Gilly and Baby Sam against the White Walker. That's the first time you see just how brave he is. He's desperately scrabbling around for something to kill this thing with, and as luck would have it, he happens to be in possession of one of the very few things that actually gets a result against these things. He was acting purely on desperation and purely on impulse to protect the two people in the world that he holds higher than anybody else.
Send me, Gilly, and the baby to Old Town so I can become a maester. That's what I'm meant to be, not this.
He says to Jon, I want to fight the same battle as you do, but I know that I can't fight it physically alongside you. I can go there and fight that battle in my own way. He believes that the Citadel, before he gets there, is a place where he can finally belong.
It's a map of Dragonstone.
That's dragonglass.
Jon needs to know.
He's so excited about that because he feels that that is him starting to repay that debt and starting to repay Jon's faith in him.
This message was sent to me by Samwell Tarly. He was my brother at the Night's Watch. A man I trust as much as anyone in this world. He's discovered proof that Dragonstone sits on a mountain of dragonglass.
O antagonismo de Game of Thrones sempre foi dividido entre vários personagens, mas nos Caminhantes Brancos e no Rei da Noite sempre esteve a figura do vilão principal. E somente na quarta temporada a gente viu realmente quem era o Rei da Noite. Game of Thrones nunca deixou claro qual é o objetivo do Exército dos Mortos, e nem mesmo deu detalhes de qual é a origem e qual é o passado dos Caminhantes Brancos. Então, no fim das contas, na oitava temporada, o que será que a gente vai ver sobre esses vilões? Mas antes disso, vamos tentar entender um pouco o passado deles.
For us as viewers, we've seen the very opening scene. We know there's something very evil and mystical out there. When he sees his first white, he realizes there's things greater out there than his personal ambition. It really sets out who he is for the rest of our story and what his main aim is, which is to warn the rest of the kingdoms to be ready for this threat. In realizing that the wildlings aren't the great threat, that in fact by leaving them beyond the wall, they're a greater threat because they could well become part of the army of the undead. He needs to get them south. And he needs Tormund to do this.
I believe this mission to be reckless, foolhardy, and an insult to all the brothers who have died fighting the wildlings.
As always, thank you for your honesty.
And they go to Hardhome. That's the first time we really see the army of the dead.
This isn't a battle, really. It's a massacre. Got the army of the dead coming, and the wildlings putting up resistance for as long as they can, so it doesn't have the feel of a battle so much as a horror movie sequence.
Not again!
We learn so much in that story about how difficult they are to destroy, about Jon's sword being the only thing that can shatter their weapons, and through this we meet the Night King. It ends with them saving some people on a boat, but losing the vast majority.
We need this dragon glass, my lord.
He has a very good sense of what they're facing, a better sense of what they're facing than anybody in this room, because he's the only one in the room who's actually seen it. And you need to see it to believe it.
You've been so consumed with the enemy to the north, you've forgotten about the one to the south.
I'm consumed with the Night King because I've seen him. And believe me, you'd think of little else if you had to.
We still have a wall between us and the Night King. There's nothing between us and Cersei.
It's not so much that he dismisses Cersei as a threat long term, but right now the imminent threat is the Night King and the army of the dead. Winter has come. He knows that makes travel very difficult. The idea that Cersei is going to lead a Lannister army up this far north, which has never been done before and which is probably, beyond her capabilities, doesn't really concern him.
You stand in the presence of Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen.
He's a very strong-willed person. He didn't come down there to bend the knee. He didn't come down there to join her in her fight against Cersei. None of that matters at this point. All that matters is fighting the dead.
If they get past the wall and we're squabbling amongst ourselves, we're finished.
She looks at him and she thinks, this is some unwashed barbarian from the north and a bastard. His name's Jon Snow, yet he's calling himself king. If she knew what he'd seen, she'd be looking very, very differently at what he's telling her. But at this moment in time, she only sees somebody who's trying to carve up her piece of her kingdom for himself. And if what this guy is saying is true, then it really is an issue, and she has her own very serious issues to deal with.
The idea that this is like one of those French caves where prehistoric man lived and painted on the walls, except in our case it wasn't prehistoric men but children of the forest. It's supposed to be something that's very evocative of the thousands of years that have passed since these caves were first explored and the paintings were first made, and also obviously something that's quite relevant to the current storyline because it's about how these two disparate peoples united to fight the common enemy. How will Jon Snow try to convince people to fight for him against an enemy they've never seen before?
Cersei thinks the army of the dead is nothing but a story. What if we prove her wrong?
When the first Whites got through in season 1, they sent Alliser Thorne down with a hand that was at the time probably still doing this to prove to everybody that this was going on. By the time this hand got down there, it had rotted away to nothing and stopped doing this. There was the idea that bringing one of these things down south had been put out there before in a way that didn't work, but in theory you could bring one of these things down and have it still functional by the time it gets to King's Landing. That seemed like that would, on a story level, do the trick.
The first white I ever saw was brought into Castle Black from beyond the wall. Bring one of these things down to King's Landing and show her the truth.
Like many of these situations on the show, the one who figures it out is Tyrion. The only way you're going to prove it to people is to show it to people. And obviously we can't bring everyone up there, so that means bringing one of them down here.
It was a real back and forth about who would be on this mission, who wouldn't be on this mission. The Dirty Dozen obviously came to mind. Everybody has a good reason to hate everybody else.
I mean, it's definitely got that, gathering together these kind of misfits. A bunch of our favorite characters, many of whom have never been on screen together, but who all find themselves at the end of the world for one reason or another. And so getting Tormund back in the picture, the Hound and Jon and Beric and Jorah, it's a fun group.
At a certain point, you have to find the army of the dead. We were thinking, how can you possibly survive that situation? That was the thing that was the hardest for us. We came gradually to the idea that the one way they might survive is to be in the middle of an island, and then you put 5,000 or 10,000 whites on that ice coming after them, that might believably be something that would break the ice in a way that they didn't.
At a certain point, they're just fighting for their survival. Once they retreat all the way to the middle of the lake, there's nowhere farther to run. She's always been willing to risk her life to do what she thinks is right. And then, of course, there's Jon Snow. You definitely get the sense that he's become quite important to her in a pretty short amount of time. He sees that they're all going to die if the dragon doesn't take off. The rational decision at that point is you guys go to safety and I'll try to keep them off you as long as I can. The thing with Cold Hands is it all has to somehow work in a pretty compressed time frame because there just isn't time.
Uncle Benjamin! You're right for the pass. Come with me. There's no time. Go!
For Cold Hands, I think it's almost a relief in some ways because he's been trapped in this kind of purgatory state between life and death for quite some time. And like so many of the characters in the show waiting to find out what his purpose is, why is he still alive when he should be dead? And for him, it seems like he's found his purpose in these last 2 seasons by saving first Bran and now Jon. The whole path of the show in some way had been trying to map out all the episode endpoints, and with this one it was the dragon opening its blue eye and realizing that the Night King has finally gotten his own weapon of mass destruction.
We knew that killing the dragon was going to have a tremendous emotional impact because over the seasons and seasons of the show it's really been emphasized what they are to Dany. We knew that the Night King would see and seize this opportunity. Like to think that when the dragon dies, that it's kind of a 1-2 punch, because on the one hand, you're just seeing the horror of one of these 3 amazing beings like this in the world going under the water and not coming up again and processing that. Then you're processing something that's even worse, which is when it comes back out from under the water again, and we see in the last shot of the episode what it becomes.
O inverno chegou. A ameaça é real e as famílias de Westeros precisam superar suas diferenças se quiserem sobreviver ao poderoso exército de zumbis que marcha em direção às Terras do Sul. Para convencer a rainha Cersei de que os Caminhantes Brancos não são uma lenda do norte, o Jon Snow vai lá e captura um dos soldados deles e o exibe para os principais líderes dos 7 reinos. A julgar por aquele ser completamente medonho, a destruição da humanidade é só uma questão de tempo.
You have 60 plus hours at this point of main characters who you hopefully are really invested in. It was a challenge because there are so many different ways it could go, but the fact that it was centered around the effort to persuade Cersei to stand down and to accept a truce, that gave it a spine.
This isn't about living in harmony. It's just about living.
The Dragon Pit is probably one of the most essential sequences in all of Game of Thrones.
Tyrion and his posse, they know they're entering a dangerous place and they know they're taking a risk coming here.
It's people becoming aware of the smallness, I think, in their nature. No matter how much they fight each other, there's a bigger threat to life than just who's on the throne.
You can say to anyone, you know, this disease is coming, but until you can show them evidence, they won't get past their own smaller problems to fight the big problem.
These things build over time, you know. It takes 70 hours to get to this point. It takes 70 hours for the story to allow this scene to happen.
There's a momentum that's up now which doesn't stop. So that's really exciting.
One of the themes of the season, that characters might be skeptics about religion and the supernatural, but once they confront it face to decomposing face, it's really hard to deny it anymore.
I think seeing the truth of what's in the North, it meant one thing to Jaime and it meant something else to Cersei. They both acknowledge the truth of it. They're both smart enough to realize what it means, but she is still seeing it from a cold, strategic standpoint, and he's seeing it from a position more of existential survival for everyone.
This isn't about noble houses. This is about the living and the dead.
And I intend to stay amongst the living.
Now we've known this would be the ending of the penultimate season.
The Wall's kept these things out for 8,000 years. There's no real reason that it can't keep doing that unless something puts a hole in the wall. There's one thing on the board from the beginning that is now big enough to do that, and that's a dragon. It just started to suggest itself as a logical way forward.
We write, and then the wall comes tumbling down, and it's really easy to type those words on. It's really hard for them to make it look good.
Needed to be a thing you go out of the season on.
First 4 or 5 years of the show, it was the expanding universe, and as we get near the end of the show, the universe contracts. Characters are going to a place that they never have before, quite literally in some cases, but also just in a larger sense where they're facing the conflicts they know will decide their fates.
The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives.
Winter is here, and it's all hitting the fan from all directions.
Depois de relembrar todos esses acontecimentos, o nosso último episódio deste especial de Game of Thrones vai falar sobre a 8ª temporada, mas não só isso. Qual foi o real legado que Game of Thrones deixou para a televisão e para a cultura pop como um todo? No meio de tantas polêmicas e questões controversas, o que será que ela já mudou no entretenimento? E para quem ainda não conhece os conteúdos da HBO, olha só a novidade, vai ter sinal aberto da HBO na net dos dias 12 a 14 de abril. E além das produções originais, tem séries e filmes incríveis para você curtir no final de semana, e no domingo à noite tem a estreia da temporada final de Game of Thrones. E quem tem o Claro Pós, assiste tudo isso pelo app do Now, sem descontar da internet do celular.